I really thought that it was going to be horizontal, but my phone will not let me do horizontal, so we're going to do vertical. My name's Hannah. This is Mostly Paper Crafts, and today we're going to be talking about beginner bookbinding for card makers. So that is our theme for this live. Well, I thought it was going to be my first horizontal live, but it is my second or third vertical live stream. So brand new to bookbinding, but I'm having a lot of fun already. And I feel like I have a lot of things that I could share with other beginners to help you out on your journey too. Now, first of all, when I told my husband I want to get into bookbinding, he said, "Do you really need another hobby?" And I was kind of prepared for that. Binding is going to be a natural extension of card making for me, of paper crafts for me. I don't need a bunch of supplies. And if you're a card maker too, I don't think that you're going to need a bunch of supplies. And I want to show you how you can get started. Hi, Hannah. Nice to see you. I'm having just a couple of technical difficulties here. Oh, hi, Dawn. So nice to see you, ladies. Thanks for stopping by. So we're going to talk about beginner bookbinding, and these are the first 3 books that I made. I just started yesterday, and I started with paper that I didn't really like because I knew that these books were just like, oh, this is my... So I found some paper, got a book, I used some gold. This stitch is called a pamphlet stitch, and I will be showing you how you can do that stitch too. After I did this book, I did around my corners, and I was ready to make my second book, which is this one. I used the same scrapbook paper for each of these. I just used the other half because I was 12 by 12. I used the same punch, but just 1 piece instead of 2. And this one has a really nice cotton paper inside. This is actually resume paper, and I got it at Goodwill for like $1. And then I made a long one. This is more of the gold thread, along with some scrapbooking paper from my stash, and more of that pretty cotton resume paper that I got from Goodwill. So I didn't need any new supplies to create these books, and there's so many other things that I could create without buying any new. And I really thought, you know what? I think that a lot of card makers would want to do something like this. All right, so supplies. Obviously, we're going to need some thread and a needle. You're going to need something to punch holes. I'm sure you probably have a couple of pokey tools. So in the bookbinding world, they use something called an awl, but these pokey tools work just fine. A ruler. A metal ruler is handy if you're going to be using a knife to cut along the edge. But I also found that a centering ruler is especially helpful because then you don't really have to make a template ahead of time, and you can just line it up in the middle of your pages and punch. So I really like the centering ruler for that. A corner chomper. So this one is a heavy duty one that I've got 15, 20 years ago when I was doing coil binding for scrapbooks. The most important tool besides your punch is going to be some sort of a bone folder. Scissors for your thread, and probably a cutting mat. So for all my card makers out there, you probably already have a lot of these tools, right? Like you don't need anything extra to start bookbinding. I didn't mention paper, but I have a feeling that you have some of that. We'll talk about paper next. So for beginner books, just regular copy paper. I also show that I'm using some cotton resume paper. I really did buy this at Goodwill for like $1, and I think that Goodwill is a great place to buy both paper reams as well as envelopes. And then you want something pretty for your covers. So for this evening, I chose a few different scrapbooking papers. And I just want to talk briefly about like why I chose these and why I think these will be good for my books. Hi, Susan. So this is a linen paper. I mean, it's kind of classic for books. This is a homemade, well, I didn't make, I am going to make paper, but this is a homemade thick mulberry type of scrapbooking paper, and it is 2 colors. There's also some foil in here, so I thought this would be really pretty on the front of a small journal. I just like the pattern of this one. I think this is the one that I'm going to do first. There's nothing very special about the texture or the coating on this, but I'm having an Anne of Green Gables tea party with a friend tomorrow. So we're going to do a marathon where we're watching the Megan Follows Anne of Green Gables made for TV movies while we're crafting and have a tea. It's going to be fabulous. But I want to make a little gift for my friend that's coming over, and I thought this paper would be really pretty on an Anne of Green Gables themed journal. So that's that. Dawn, I am not sure what I'm going to do with the journals. Art, writing, grocery lists, probably make a lot of cards, and I think it's great to give a card for an occasion, but I thought it would be really nice to make a card and then also do like a matching journal with it. Yeah. Oh, and thank you, Susan. Okay, so this is for my Anne of Green Gables journal for my friend. This one has some glossy accents, so I think that will be really pretty on the outside of a journal. This one has a lot of foil. I think that will be very pretty as well. And this one, well, this is a new one, 2008 from my scrapbooking stash. This one is shiny on both sides, and it has different patterns, so I thought this would be really pretty on the outside, and then this could be the inside. So I just spent a few minutes going through my scrapbooking paper, through my old stash. I have a feeling you probably have some old papers that would work well too. And then beyond that, we really just need a thread and some paper. So for my Anne of Green Gables journal, I want to do something just a little bit different from these ones, which are A2 size. So they are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I don't think that I could squeeze these into a normal A2 envelope. However, it is easy to make envelopes with a sheet of scrapbooking paper, and you could make it just a little bit longer, a little wider, and then these could go right in the mail. I'm only doing 10 pages, so it's like 5 sheets of paper and then cut in half. So it really doesn't weigh too much. I would say this is probably 2 ounces, a 2-ounce stamp, and then put it in the mail straight away. John, you said you love Anne with an E. I have not seen that series. Have you seen the one with Megan Follows? Because my friends insist that it's the only version to watch. The thing that I'm going to do that's going to be different here is that instead of doing 5 1/2 inches tall by 8 1/2 inches long, which would be enough to cover my A2 size book, I also want to do pockets. So I worked out a couple of different designs for that. And one way would be, I just do scratch paper for this. One way would be to do the pockets so that they open up on the sides. Now, this is just a letter size piece of paper, so it's shorter than my scrapbook paper, and I would be able to make those flaps a little bit longer. So the flap would come in a little bit more, then I would glue it at the bottom, and I probably would round off the top up here. The other option would be to do the pockets. Just realized I have another one that doesn't have quite so many markings on it. This is just scratch paper from a conference that I was at last week. Okay, could also do the pockets at the bottom. And so if I do the pockets at the bottom, what I would do is I would glue along each of these sides, and then I would trim this center crease, and then I would cut up so that this corner is rounded here, and that way it's secured here but loose on this side, so that you could slip something into the pocket, and then that would be on the front and on the back. So I'm kind of leaning toward these bottom pockets, but I did want to show you that it would be an easy option to do them on the sides as well. Yeah, the only ones that I've seen are the ones from the 80s that were made from TV, and like I said, my friends insist that that's the only one, and I think it's really funny because my friends that are obsessed with Anne of Green Gables really love that show, love that movie, but they said that the books aren't that good, so I actually haven't read the books myself. All right, so my design is going to be to do my cover like this. So just doing some quick math here, I need to cut down my scrapbooking paper to, this is 4 1/4 and 4 1/4, so 8 1/2 this way. And then if I do 5 1/2 plus a couple inches more, that'll be 7 1/2 inches. So I'm going to write that down. So I'm going to cut my paper to, what did we say, 8 1/2 by 7 1/2. There are so many different dimensions that could work for this. When you're making your own book, it's totally up to you how big, how small. If you did want to fit this into an A2 size envelope, then just make it a little bit smaller so that it fits inside. And I mean, nobody's going to complain that their journal is a couple millimeters short on each side of an A2 size card. I mean, that's not a thing. So, all right, I'm going to get this cut, and then we're going to poke some holes in some paper. One thing I really like about these projects is how quickly they can come together, but also how much time you could spend to really personalize them and make them beautiful. So I added just a couple of elements here from this old punch because it was easy and it was right there. But I have all of these beautiful dies. You probably have some dies too if you are a card maker. And I thought, wow, wouldn't something like this be so beautiful on the front of a handmade journal? So I did cut out a few foil sheets from this honeybee set. This is the antique layering frames, and I love them in foil. Like, give you a quick idea of thinking, like, wouldn't something like that be so pretty on the front of a journal? Not with those, obviously, but this might look good. This might look good on here. So we shall see. Just trying to get my card making friends interested in the world of bookbinding. Like I said, you may not even have to buy a single new thing and be able to create projects like this as gifts or for yourself. All right, 8 1/2 by 7 1/2. I'm bringing in my very big paper cutter for just a moment. I have a smaller paper trimmer, but I just don't trust it the way that I trust the big one. Do you use a small paper cutter? A big one? Do you like the guillotine? Do you like the one with the blade that slides up and down? Now I have to remember which way. 2 inches. Now, I have a scoreboard, but you really don't have to have a scoreboard to be able to score. And so I'm just gonna do my measurements on the back here. And I'm gonna do 2 inches on the top and the bottom of this. And really this is the length of the 7.5 there to get those numbers. But I'm gonna show you this without a scoreboard just in case you don't have one. Show you could just do this with the ruler and the piece of paper. Now, if you have your pokey tool or a bone folder, you can definitely use those to start your score. Don't push too hard with that pokey tool. But do you see fibers? And now I'm just going to pull up from the bottom of my paper and run it along the side of that ruler. And I'm going to take my bone folder and reinforce it that way too. Okay. So that came out very nicely, and I didn't need another specialized tool for that. Now, when I fold it the other way, we don't have to do any measuring because we want it to be folded evenly. And my tip for that is we're gonna fold over from our dominant hand, I'm right-handed, toward our non-dominant hand. And we wanna line up that top and bottom corner the best that we can. So I'm taking care, lining up this corner and this corner, and then I'm gonna hold it really tight with this hand. And then the trick to folding like this is that you start in the middle, and then you can go up and down. And that's gonna give you a really nice crease. So this is going to be the cover for my little mini book. But I'm not quite done yet because I want this to be a pocket that's kind of open on the sides. So I'm going to be cutting here on that separate. And then I want to round these off. I could round them off with my scissors. I've got a couple of corner chompers here. But I also think maybe I'll take off a little bit of this width just so it doesn't get caught up on my pages once I stitch those in. So I'm going to do 2 more quick cuts. Just very, very thin cuts here. For those of you who record under a camera, it's an awkward angle to work at when you're crafting. All right, so that's that side. Yeah, I like that. That gives me a little more clearance there. And then I'm just gonna do the same thing on the other side. Just trimming off maybe a 1/16 of an inch. Doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, when you're making a handmade gift for someone, you kind of want them to know that it's handmade, right? You don't want it to be so perfect that they think you bought it at the store. I think I did a 32nd of an inch, so I'm gonna take off 1 more sliver. All right. So I've got my corner chompers here, but I am just gonna